last episode, we looked at the different URLs that are produced by the REST adapter, and we looked at common ways to change those, to customize it. In this episode, we're going to be going even deeper. We're going to be looking at some of the less common ways, more invasive ways of customizing the adapter. So the first and the most obvious is to write over something directly. So we can just completely write over the CreateRecord method. However, that's not typically recommended because there's a lot that gets done within that method. So it's different for each of the methods, but in CreateRecord, three main things happen. First, the URL is built up using various options. Then, the data is serialized into a hash. And then you call out to the server using ajax. So you can recreate all of this and create a new method called CreateRecord. But oftentimes it's easier to go deeper in, to change something within buildURL or something within ajax. You could also change stuff in the serializer, and we'll get to serialize into hash later. However, there is one case where it would actually be better to overwrite CreateRecord. And that's when you need to change the HTTP verb, or if you need to change how this data is constructed, if you don't want it all within data. But aside from that, we'll want to go into buildURL or ajax to change stuff. So buildURL is defined within the buildURL mixin, and the main method, it just takes the request type and it calls out to several other methods. That's what all the urlFor methods do. Then these urlFor methods are all defined down here. However, you can overwrite them individually. Let's go ahead and overwrite urlForCreateRecord. And so that'll take the model name and the snapshot. And then we could do a lot of processing. We'll just return a string for now. And one thing you'll notice is that the host and the namespace are not applied. It's not tacodaily.com/API/version1/hello. It's just hello. And that is because urlForCreateRecord calls buildURL, the private version. And that private version is where all the magic happens. So this is where the URL prefix and the host are added on, and where a lot of other processing occurs. That's not to say you shouldn't overwrite urlForCreateRecord. It's just that you should know what you're replacing, the complexity of it, before you go and replace it, so you can make up for some of that complexity. So that's buildURL. Then we have the serializer, which is we're calling serialize into hash on, and we'll go over that when we go over the serializers. And then we call ajax. Ajax is where we prepare and then call the ajax call. So it's a promise, and we'll define something for what will happen when it's successful and when it fails, and then we go ahead and call it. You can, of course, overwrite ajax, and that's what I've done in order to create this app right here. So here, instead of calling out to a server, I mock up some stuff based on what Ember Data expects back, and then I just resolve it while sending out to my URL tracker so that I can display it on the screen. While we're here, you'll also notice that I overrode buildURL as well. But in this case, I have it returning super, and so it ends up calling buildURL as it was before, in addition to what I did. So in this episode, we went over some methods that are pretty core to what the REST adapter does, but aren't necessarily overridden as much as the ones we went over last time. Those are buildURL, the urlForX methods, as well as the ones that are directly called, like CreateRecord or deleteRecord. We also went over the ajax method, which you'll notice isn't here. That's because it's a private method. So ajax is really not meant to be overridden, although I did it because I had a very special use case. So those are all the core ones, but you'll notice that there's still some that we haven't gone over. We'll go over those miscellaneous methods in the next episode. I'll see you then.